Happy New Year's, everybody. How are y'all doing tonight? I hope everybody's doing fine. It's been a pretty good New Year's. Um, Other than waking up with a headache this morning, thought I had the COVID, the new variant, but I didn't. Um, I didn't even drink last night, which was pretty shocking to me. Um, we did go out. The pub I went to changed it to a um, Betty White celebration, which was kind of neat. All the Gen Xers in the county were there last night, including the cops. Um, so before I begin with answering this email I received from my last one talking about you have a retention issue with your staff, I got a notification from a friend who has a friend who's in the hospital with COVID, has underlying conditions, is on nothing, I don't think, for her asthma, but she does have that as an underlying condition. If you're not going to get the immunization and you're against it, and I'm not telling you to do it, I'm just saying if that's your belief system, and you've got your stuff at home to treat your usual underlying condition, at least you can do is get your vitamins. We actually call it the Trinity. It's iron, vitamin D, and zinc. Those tend to work. One of the things that we've found actually in the nursing home that I've started giving a lot of that's actually having some effect is Geritol. Who would know why? It's a lot of B vitamins and some iron, and it's an old medicine. I mean, it's been around for at least 100 years, I'm sure. But it works. It's keeping a lot of the old people from getting so sick with COVID, even the ones that do. So if you're going to do that, and I would do it. The one thing we have noticed about COVID that we don't notice about anything else, and the nurses will talk about it with each other. We call it COVID syndrome or post-COVID syndrome, whatever you want to think of it as. It's always the after. It's not the acute phase of the infection that we actually really worry about so much. It's the after effects. Now, if you've got an underlying condition and this attacks that underlying condition that you get it, yeah, that's the acute phase, and that's where it's the deadliest in the hospitals. That's where you get put on a vent, may or may not come off. It's very real. This is not a make-up disease. It's very, very real. But we know all of this. I'm not for one. I'm not telling you what to do with your bodies. It's not my business. I took it because I had an autoimmune disease which required me to take some radiation, and I finally went into remission, and I couldn't see not taking the shot, getting through the radiation part of my illness, and then dying from a common cold. It just didn't make sense to me. So I took the Johnson & Johnson shot. Oh, there's so much bad. Well, immunizations have the same side effects. They all cause the same things. You can look them all up. All immunizations have an autoimmune response the body has. All of them can cause blood clots. Johnson & Johnson's does cause blood clots. So does Pfizer, so does BioNTech, and so does Moderna. You really should be asking yourself why Pfizer has come up with a pill, kind of like Tamiflu, except for COVID, and why they're not pushing that too. Monoclonal antibodies, I've taken a 1 hour dose of that in Memphis before I went to work one day. I did have that. I'm sinusy now because we had a front come through and it's rained horrendously for the last 24 hours. Raining again now and getting colder. But that's my spiel on the COVID-19. If you're going to not be proactive as far as you don't want the immunization, then at least find your vitamins. And for the nurses out there, do not listen to the CDC. I've had a couple of friend nurses that have died because we didn't have the PPE in the beginning. Of course, they got sick and they died. Don't listen about the PPE. Wear your mask. If you feel safer wearing your mask, wear it. If you don't feel like you need to be around people and you're sick, if you're like most nurses, you worry about giving it to somebody that can't fight it off. I do. And if that mask will keep one germ from killing somebody, then I've done my part. I work in nursing homes, so we're kind of required to wear them. But that's my spiel on that too. So on my last published thing, I've been working hard the last couple of weeks of the year. I took the last 4 or 5 days of the year off and been catching up stuff around the house. But one of the things I mentioned was facilities there's not a nursing shortage. I mean, there's a shortage in areas of the country. It's not universally there. Nurses know beyond a shadow of a doubt we have alternatives now. That's the beauty of these jobs right now. The report circulated about Iowa paying an agency company $220 an hour for regular time and $330 an hour for overtime. Nurses aren't making that money. Those agencies are making that money. So don't start jumping on nurses because a company has decided that they're going to give us some money to come do what we do. Not because they want to do it, but because they need us. There are plenty of openings. The email that I got was from a former administrator that I worked for. And it was kind of cheeky at me. Since I'm so knowledgeable, why don't I tell you how to get you some employees? Well, I'm going to answer your email, Mr. Let's call him Dan. Dan. I changed the names to protect the innocent. So here you go. People that work in the nursing home industry, people that work in the hospitals, when they see agency come in, they see dollar signs. And it's true. I'm one of those people. I've got almost 30 years of experience in nursing, acute, ER, forensic, that's jails and prisons. I've worked just every part of the hospital. I've even delivered a couple of babies. So I can do pretty much any part. I don't like a lot of the acute care stuff in the hospitals. That's for the young folks. That's a high intensity job. They don't get paid enough by organizations now. I wish that they would get the clue. You bringing in agency staff and then griping about having to bring in agency staff and you can't raise the rates of the people you've got working for you is BS. If we all know that you're using the agency staff to use as a tax write-off, it saves your bottom line. If you want staff members coming into your facilities, to work for you full time, you're going to have to raise the rates. I've been offered jobs off and on for the last 6 months, want me to come aboard. I don't want to do administrative work. I've done that for 10 years and I'm tired of it. Um, I'm tired of having to think for people who can't think for themselves. I'm tired of having to coddle family members who allow guilt because they had to put their parent or their aunt and uncle that they ended up having to care for, and they had to put them in a nursing home. And they really didn't want to, but they didn't have a choice. And then they used that guilt and bring it down on the administration and the staff and whatever, trying to find a reason to get back at somebody. And I got tired of it. All I want to do is go in, give my meds, do my treatments, and clock in and clock out and go home. I can leave all of that crap at work and never bring it home again. I spent too many years of my life worrying about that. It took away from my family time, which I found out this past year that family time is the most important thing in your life is family time. So don't come and say to me that you can't afford to pay somebody. I had a facility, Kyle offered me a charge nurse position working the floor, and they offered me a grand total of $19 an hour to give meds and put up with the BS inside of a long-term care facility. I laughed so hard. I said, I haven't worked for $19 in like 15 years. So I don't know what you think. The last time I actually worked for $19 an hour was 2004 or 2005. And I don't have to do that anymore. You keep giving lowball numbers like that. You could have basically said, we can give you $19 an hour, or I can go work at Hobby Lobby for $18.50 an hour. And that makes a huge difference. You're paying CNAs $12 and $13 an hour when they can go to McDonald's and make $15. If you can't afford to give your people benefits without it taking the majority of their check, then you need to get with other facilities and do a cooperative insurance program or do a pay-in partnership insurance program. They're all legal. You can do that. That Christian organization has their insurance thing, and it's $500 a month. That's pretty feasible at $250 a pay period. Most people can work a couple of extra shifts of OT and get that. But if you're not going to pay people, they're not coming. Now, Dan, you cheeked me a little bit. It kind of perturbed me. We've had these conversations before. Sat in your office and drank several cups of coffee over the same issue, and then you're going to force it out on me that because I'm so knowledgeable. It's supply and demand. Right now, y'all have a demand, and you can't get the supply to come work for you because you're undercutting their money. One thing you don't mess with people is their money. Now, these nurses traveling on these long-term contracts, and I say long-term contracts, I'm talking about 13 weeks, 6 months to a year. I did that for years, but the money is good. They're making good money, and I got an offer this week to go to Michigan for $4,500 a week. That sounds like a lot of money, but when you look at the tax rates on that, because they end up taxing the hell out of you, they don't tell you that up front. One mistake on your W-2, and they end up getting probably a good third, little over a third of that whole amount of money. I've got a friend that's doing it now. She loves it, and she works 4 or 5 days a week because the more you work, the more you make. That's still the rule, and that's cool, which is great. I think it's about time. The rates are going to start dwindling now. Once this part of COVID is over, you're going to see the rates start dropping, and then you're going to have nurses going to look. But the problem is they can be more selective, and we can basically tell you what we're going to work for. And you can say no, but I can promise you, especially in the long-term care sector, I can promise you $250 a day every day until you get full staff. You're going to come off that money because it's cheaper to pay us upfront early on than it is to pay those fines in the long run. Now, you can take your chances if you want. That's fine. It's your business. It's you're the administrator of that building. And if that's a chance you're willing to take, then go for it. If you're trying to wait for people to start graduating school, guess who else is going to be selective? Because they're going to come out of school wanting the kind of money we're getting right now. They went into school for that. We've quit training nurses to be nurses, and we've trained nurses to be computer technicians. Treat a computer and put information in the computer about a human body. And then y'all ain't gonna like it. I understand that. I'm old school. I came through a time frame when we hand wrote everything that happened on a resident all night long. It's been a long time since the 90s. We hand wrote everything. The invention of the computer is supposed to make it easier. And now you administrators and you DONs and you ADONs and you nurse consultants have found a way to keep us using paper. Ridiculously stupid. You build a roadmap for a surveyor, because I know how they work. I've been a liaison for CMS, and they go looking for those pathways. And once you triple chart and quadruple chart, you've let them on. If it's 1 point off, let's say you got your AccuChecks, that's blood sugar checks, finger sticks, whatever you want to call them, and you've got the order for the sliding scale insulin, an order for the regular insulin, and an order for the long-term insulin, and all of that, you have a blood sugar that's supposed to be put in every single time for every single dose. That's you doing that. Last time I checked, AccuChecks AC and HS meant before meals and at bedtime, and that's one time. That's one order. It don't say check it before all of that. We're going to check it whether there's an order for it or not. Most people that give insulin are scared of insulin. They're not going to admit it. I'm still scared of insulin after almost 30 years because it will kill. You can kill somebody with the wrong dose, especially if they're super sensitive to it. Let me get a drink of coffee. But so if you can put the order in for AC and HS, and you can put it with every sliding scale, especially in PCC. That's my favorite charting system. To the facilities that keep using AHC and Matrix and I forgot what the other ones are called. Those are okay. They're not bad. Nurse friendly. The most nurse friendly one to me is PCC. I can operate in and out of it. I've taken up buildings on it. I've gone live with it several times throughout my career. I've entered information to it. It's all contained into one place. You need to be thinking about at this point as much transferring. You find your primary ER that we transfer to and give them a general access to every chart for every person you transfer to that facility. Makes it easier on the nurse in here and over there. But you're going to have to be proactive about stuff like that, or nurses aren't going to come work for you. The more difficult the charting, the more they tend to stay away. You've got to figure out how to make nurses quit talking to each other, and that's never going to happen. You want your CNAs, you can't compete with McDonald's at the rate you're paying them now. You're going to have to give up that profit margin to get staffed. You ask, Dan, and I'm telling you, this is the alligator healthcare, especially private healthcare companies. This is an alligator now they have created. They've developed an alligator mouth and a hummingbird ass. If they have a board of directors, the board of directors is expecting the widest profit margin they can actually generate. They don't care about which corners you cut. and don't like the corners that you have to cut. You think that's bad, you can co-op with other nursing homes in your area to order supplies and get insurance and cut your costs down considerably. The more you order in bulk, the cheaper it is. Everybody needs to basically, all these different companies are going to have to get on board. I know y'all don't want to hear that because everybody thinks their way is the best. You need to be asking the nurses that work the floor, not the ones that are in administrative positions that stay in the office all day. They understand the problems, but they're not out there having to solve the problems. They have to solve the big fires while your staff is putting out all the little fires in the building. It's 11 o'clock at night and I go to the supply closet and there are no 4x4s. I'm not calling the supply clerk to come. I need a key to the supply room. Oh, why don't I have a key to the supply room? Because apparently y'all think people are stealing diapers. And that's the truth. Depends is not a black market item. You may think it is. It is not. If you've got vitamins and pills and stuff in your supply closet, then you got an issue there too, because they're supposed to be in a med room. Medicines go in a med room, not a supply closet. That's where we start running into a lot of issues. And of course, if I'm having a problem like that in a facility and I'm working a per diem and I go in there to work a shift and I'm having difficulty working a shift, I'm canceling any other shifts I got. Because we already know what good facilities run like. We know what bad facilities run like. And it's always the same. All nursing homes, long-term care facilities, rehabilitation centers, rehabilitation hospitals are the same. I found all the ones I like to go to, and I make my little circles once a week. I get to travel and get to meet all the people. I've made friends in these facilities. I've made friends in other cities that we actually keep up with each other. I'll call and check on something. Oh, I was in that building the other day. Can you tell me about what they did with so-and-so? Y'all think that's a HIPAA violation. We call it continuity reports. Because we're going to rotate to the same buildings because we all talk to each other on Facebook. And if you're one of the facilities that winds up on our list not to go to, then you need to find out why. Because we do talk. There's a selective Facebook page where we talk about the facilities you don't want to go to. If you make the list, sorry, somebody decided to put you there. And we have to have a reason. And it's not like we just selectively say, I don't like this place because she treated me like crap. I'm used to that. I don't care. I'm actually really there for the residents. I'm one of those nurses that goes in and I flirt with all them 80-year-old women and they eat it up. And of course, with a voice like this, they're going to, which is just me being facetious. In a lot of these facilities, so for a year, I traveled to Kansas City, week on and a week off. There were no visitors in the facilities, in the long-term care facilities. They weren't having any visitors, no outside visitors, no vendors. Vendors had to leave stuff on the porch. Staff members had to go outside and double duty, bringing in stuff. So for a year, I was the only visitor most of those residents got in the building that I work for. And they made a big to-do about, they would be waiting on me at the front door on my first night back because it was somebody coming to visit. And I did that, and I did not mind doing it. I loved every minute of it just as much as they did. But it's because of the way I treated them just like family, and I treat them all like family. We've lost that in the medical field, and it's sad to say. We need to go back to that. We need to get by all of this testing. quit worrying about these HESIs and quit worrying about this and that and quit worrying about just teaching them how to pass the board exam. I mean, really nothing's changed about that. The questions seem to be a little bit harder because the choices are all right. Oh, but you've got to pick what's the most correct. It's actually harder to have two correct answers down there and two false answers down there and having to decide between two instead of four. But it teaches them critical thinking. You know, if they don't really have it to start with, if they can't use common sense to decide, if you tell me airway, breathing, circulation is the primary way we're doing it, then that's the way you got to do all your answers. If it's not, then it's your fault. It's the NLN's fault. It's the ANA's fault for not stepping up. When they came out and said that nurses didn't have to quarantine, go to work after like a couple of days, what? That's BS. It's pure BS. If we were sick with the flu before all this COVID crap happened, maybe y'all told us stay at home as long as it took 3 days, 4 days. Don't bring that crap in the building and cause an outbreak. But now the CDC says something different and y'all are going for it. But yet no nursing organization is stepping up except the AACN. And that's American Association of Critical Nursing. Those are your ICU and ER nurse program. That's what that one is. They're the ones actually taking a stand, but the other bigger organizations are not. You're pushing us to a national nursing organization. Oh, we've already got one of those. Now you probably do, but you don't have a union. But it's coming. It's being talked about every day amongst nurses. And we don't have your permission to do it. We can file a claim under a nursing organization and then turn around and unionize it and start charging dues and getting the Teamsters to come back and represent us again like they did back in the 80s. Well, the states won't allow it. They can't control nursing's federal. You've heard me talk about it before. If you really want to understand why these states are pulling out of the nursing compact, it's because they're scared of what's about to follow. Everybody needs to go back and read the Supreme Court, what Justice Kennedy wrote on the gay marriage clause, because it had nothing to do with gay marriage. I've been reading it. It basically says that any state that issues a license, the other states have to recognize it. So if I have a concealed carry permit and I go to New York and they don't recognize it and they arrest me, and they will, and they'll charge me with a handgun violation. And if I take it and I go to court and I get an attorney that's going to fight it on that premise alone, Supreme Court ruled it that way, it sticks. Same thing with nursing. States issue the license, Mississippi Board of Nursing, Arkansas Board of Nursing, Tennessee Board of Nursing. Any state's Board of Nursing issues license. Other states have to, you have to get an endorsement. Not really. Well, if they're a member of the compact, that's not what the law says. That's not what Justice Kennedy said in his ruling for the majority on the gay marriage. That happened to be the case that went before. They didn't rule gay marriage legal. They ruled the license legal. If a state does gay marriage, then other states have to acknowledge it, whether they believe it or not, or if it's in their constitution or not. There really is no separation. When you realize that you're part of a corporate oligarchy, that's the reason why it was done that way. and you accept the fact that we're not a constitutional republic and we're not a democracy. We're a corporate oligarchy. Really and truly, corporations run the country. He who hath the money hath the power. And that's basically where it comes from. So I'm not saying don't go practice nursing without following the rules. You need to follow the rules. But someday, probably soon, there's going to be a lawsuit brought for this same thing. And that's what they're going to find out. They're going to have to use that clause. And I can't believe an attorney hadn't used it yet, to be honest with you. But using that clause will no, it will negate a lot of rules and regulations between states. It should really be pushed because each state hands out an insurance license for you to be able to sell insurance. Can't believe it wasn't brought up during the Obamacare BS. Maybe it still will be. Justice Kennedy was a beast, just like his counterparts. Everybody talks about Clarence Thomas. Justice Kennedy was the same way. He was a beast in a whole different form. The problem is they all are, whether they're liberal leaning or conservative leaning. The Supreme Court is 9. They're the 9 most powerful legal voices in our country. If 6 of the 9 of them agree on that one thing, woo-wee. And if you put it in front of them now, with the last 3 editions, it would be worse. They would rule completely different. It may be a stronger wording of it. I respect the Supreme Court. I don't like some of their decisions, but it's not based in politics. It may be based on personal opinion, some of it, which everything we do is based on personal opinion. But a lot of it's just common sense. If a state issues a driver's license, other states actually, they honor it instead of making you have to come across state lines and get another one. So if they issue one license, you have to honor the rest of them. And in this day and age of shortage of nurses that y'all claim so bad, it's really not. You got to figure out how to get the nurses that went home to come back to work. And I know one way to do that. It's green and it's got presidents on it. You want to get people coming out and working, because I know nurses that quit working saying they quit working because of COVID. And like 3 weeks later, they were in New Hampshire, or they were in Vermont, or they were in Maine. Michigan's rolling out money right now. There's companies offering ungodly amount of money. And probably if I was where I could go and I wasn't thrust into a single parent issue right off in October, I would probably be on the road. I would probably be going for some of that money, but I'm doing just fine. I mean, I work like 2 days a week now. I worked a lot for the holidays because of my situation. There's certain things I just don't want to remember. If you don't know my story, maybe one day I'll do a biography podcast. And if you want that, put that in there. Comments box, and I'll comment on it. It's Dan, it boils down to your bottom line versus our bottom line. You have one bottom line. If you require one nurse per 20, which is still a lot of work, or one nurse per 30, that's a lot of work. And you think we're going to keep doing it for pennies. We're not. So you don't have to increase your pay. Since you're paying agency, you can increase the pay of each of the nurses that you bring in the building. You can get them to chart like you're supposed to chart. You get your CNAs to chart like they're supposed to chart. Your money you bring in will increase. Your expenditures will also increase because you brought the people in to do the job. We used to have we started breaking the units down in nursing homes, and y'all quit doing that. Y'all just throw the unit, stuck it in there, put some locked doors on it, called it a dementia unit. And all the ones I've been in, I haven't seen any neurostimulations. I haven't seen the stuff that's required of dementia units. If you're going to lock down unit for wandering or behaviors, then make it such. Quit throwing everything you got under a dementia unit. Because unless you're going to do the neurostimulation and exercises and the rote memory exercises, then they're useless, and quit billing for it. The biggest thing you have to remember now is nurses have education. They understand some of it. Now, my specialty for years has been going in, trying to figure out where the problems were from the bottom up to the top and try to fix those problems. I've been successful in a couple of buildings doing it that way, working from the bottom and giving the problems up to the top to get them fix it. Here's the problem. Y'all don't want to hear it. You want to try to keep the status quo. And I've seen your staffing sheets. You chose, this is the path y'all have chosen. This is the path running profit buildings causes. It's good to have a profit building, but you're going to pay. You're going to pay. You're not going to have a bottom line anymore. You can only use so many National Guard troops as CNAs. You can only use so many National Guard troops inside a building. You can't deputize them into being a nurse. It's a quick fix, but it's not a permanent fix. So you need to bring your wages up to basically like this. You pay your CNAs $20 an hour. You pay your LPNs $30 an hour, and you pay your RNs in the building $40 an hour. You get your RNs in the building, we all know you have to have one on the floor for 8 hours a day only. So don't use that as you can't take your RN rates up, because we all know how the rules work. My specialty is the rules. You want the 600s, you want the 800s, you want a 710. These are federal tag numbers. And 880's been the kicker for everybody. You can ADR your tags, and y'all are too scared to do that. Scared you're going to get caught somewhere else, or they're going to make it stick. You got a right to fight them, but you won't, which means you're not taking up for the people that you employ. And once everybody starts understanding that, like what's happened now, once people start understanding exactly how it works, you're shot. But you said, since I'm so insightful, that's what you have to do. You have to bring your rate to keep CNAs being CNAs. If you bring your rate up from 13 to 20, man, they'll flood your building. You take an LPN rate from 24 to 30, they're going to flood your building. You get an RN to come be the house supervisor Monday through Friday at 8 to 5 or 8 to 4, then you got a built-in treatment nurse to do the heavy-duty treatments. You don't have to hire a treatment nurse for the building. You have lost common sense. You've lost common sense. The individual is not going to stop. No, it's not, because you're going to have to change the way you your operating manual works, your building. And if you think that the survey teams really think, if you really think that word culture, that the survey teams, they're not talking about the culture of the ethnic groups. They're talking about the culture of the building. How does the building run when there's a fall? How does the building run when there's a resident to resident incident? How does the building run when there's a staff to resident incident? Do they protect the residents? Do they protect the staff members from aggressive residents? Because for years we've been told that we have to take the hitting and scratching and kicking. We don't. You got nurses out there suffering from PTSD because of their job. And what we do is hard. It's not that it's physically hard work. It can be. Especially when you're doing CPR for a couple of hours, it's physically demanding. It don't happen all the time. What does happen all the time is when you go to work and you're just constantly hit on, scratched, hit, kicked, beat, cussed, slapped, and you can't respond to it. Human nature, you have to work not to respond to it. So you got to figure out, instead of getting that monthly check from Medicaid or that monthly check from Medicare, even that daily check, you put them in acute knowing they're not going to retain any information. That's just, to me, that's misappropriation of funds. That's embezzling from Medicare. You expect nurses to take it. They're not going to. They don't have to for the pennies you're paying them. And to all the facilities out there that look at my stuff on Indeed and you offer me $19 an hour, expect to be laughed at, because I will laugh at you. I don't know what it's going to take for you administrators in these long-term care facilities and these rehab hospitals that require nursing, that require CNAs. How y'all going to dig yourself out of this hole? When you got articles like what came out about Iowa paying favorites $220 and $330 an hour. Don't ever think the nurses are making that. They're not. Nurse practitioners don't even make that. Now, what's happened is nurses are clearing their bills. Nurses are clearing their bills by working 3 days a week. And then everything else for the month is profit. So once you've got enough food in the house and you've got your bills paid, then you're just working for vacation money or student loan debt. When you really need to have respiratory therapists in the building too. It don't have to be all day. It could be just 5, 6, 7 hours a day. Because there's some respiratory therapists out there that's ready to come in and just get some breathing treatments and check some pulses and some O2 sats and chart it and take care of the next one and chart it. And they can judge from doing, say, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. They would, but you're going to have to pay them too. But they would probably come in and help you actually make some money on your respiratory therapy instead of having the nurses try to keep up with each individual nebulizing treatment and the inhalers. I can see you're so scared about having one of them have it by the bedside. We'll get a lockbox and put it in the bedside. When they're not able to do it anymore, then take it away from them. Simple math. Oh, wait. It's the word I got wrote up about and lost a job over, called common sense. We got to bring common sense back in nursing. It's never going to work. I'll get part 2 tomorrow because I'm off for several more days, because Diane, I'm getting paid to go in these facilities and cover their shifts and help them out. I'm not a robber. I'm not, I was hunting the highest paid shift, but I found out that the highest paid shifts, unless you know the building, the highest paid shifts are usually the worst ones to go to because they can't get nobody to come there, so they have to pay more money. So I find those average hourly rates at my company offers, and that's the ones I take. But when you undercut me, or you tell me, oh, we're going to add you into our clock in system because you don't have nobody to manually enter our hours into the PBJ. Yeah, I know that too. The problem you're going to have is when if I file a lawsuit against the Department of Labor saying you had me clock in and clock out and I didn't get paid from them. You can't hide behind the agency thing because I'm on your time clock. Somewhere the Department of Labor don't have a definition for that. PBJ is not a good enough reason to do it when you can manually enter all that information. But you're trying to defraud CMS's PBJ rule by making it look like that's on all of your staff. We know this. That's why we don't want to do it. It's got nothing to do because you said so. We don't want to do it because we know what you're trying to do. And for those that don't know, PBJ is payroll-based journal, and the key word in that being payroll-based, we're not on their payroll. They're paying an agency, and then the agency pays us to fill those slots they've got. I'm not on their payroll. I'm on my company's payroll that I work for. They pay me at the end of every shift. You've got to come up with different ideas like that to get your staff going instead of trying to manipulate the system. Yeah, you're going to get in trouble for using excessive amounts of agency. That means your programs in your building don't work. Your fall protocols aren't being followed. They already know what they're coming to look at by the MDS submissions. So you can deal with that any way you want to, Dan. And all the other Dans out there. I'm not singling out any one individual building. I'm just telling you about what we see. I won't be taking any more videos down. This is 2022. I won't be taking any more videos down. I won't be removing them from Facebook. I will not take them out of YouTube again. If you get your feelings hurt, you just get your feelings hurt. I've always been told in this field, especially, truth is what hurts the most. You don't like people knowing your business? Run your business right. I've said before, families need to be involved with their people's care inside a nursing home because it's real easy for things to get lost. It's real easy for orders to get lost. It's not that any one thing's going to fix any of it. But it really does take everybody working together, even your agency people. There's no expectation. So I don't know, Dan, what you're wanting me to say. I mean, this is stuff we've already talked about before over big cups of coffee, not in little cups, big cups. I still respect you, bud. Don't you know who sent the email. You're gonna watch it. I think you've already been watching it. You've sent the email. You ask, and I'm telling. So you need to go ahead and open it up. You need to go ahead and start paying your staff. And you need to start giving them at least 2 days off in a row so they can get rested from the work they're doing for you. This is, I've got more to say, and I'll probably say it tomorrow, but let's say this is part one. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Um, Loki, I appreciate the music, bud. You sent me some more. I'm gonna try to find which one to use. Uh, it's kind of weird having a friend that's international, um, but I will try to find which one to use. I appreciate you watching the video when you're on your time frame that you use over in Japan. Um, but uh, anytime you want to let me know, I'll coordinate with you. I love your music and I appreciate it. I was just going to say that on here so he gets the message. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everybody's 2022 is so much better than the last 2 years, because I have not heard not one nurse use the word Q on shift in 6 months. So I think all of this resulted in a nurse hollering it's quiet somewhere in 2019, and we've been suffering ever since. That's an old wives' tale. But y'all take care. This is David for Ridge Runner Reports, and I'm out.